Okay, so today we are going to tackle the good friend. Anyone have good friends? Raise your hand. You got good friends? We actually have quite a landscape of different friendships, wouldn't you say? We have acquaintances. We have what we consider good friends, close friends, would you say? We have family. Now that kind of gets complicated, right? Sometimes family are good friends, sometimes they're acquaintances, sometimes, we don't speak to each other for a while, right? Okay, and what is the word these days for a good friend? A BFF, right? And that means best friends forever. Okay, it almost sounds godlike, doesn't it? Forever, right? Okay, so we are going to tackle the good friend. And so everyone got a handout. We'll begin. Proverbs 12:26. A righteous man is cautious in friendships, but the way of the wicked leads them astray. He who walks with the wise grows wise, but a companion of fools suffer harm. So these first two verses basically are saying that friends influence us more than we know. And so we need to be careful who we let influence us. And if we hang around with people that are fools, guess what? We become fools. Now, it doesn't mean that we should isolate ourselves. I don't think that's what it's saying here. In fact, in the New Testament, Christ says, I am putting you in the world on purpose. But what it is saying is don't allow the world to influence you. Let God be the one that influences. Let godly people be the one who influence you. Let the righteous influence you. And you be an influence on others in a good way. But understand that you are not that strong, that you need a healthy dose of good friends in order to stay strong. Does that make sense? We are not islands in and of ourselves. We need support. And so be careful, because friends do influence us in more ways than we know. Okay, so that would be the first statement. Would you agree with that statement? Okay, have you seen in ourselves and in others how others influence us or other people, sometimes in good ways, sometimes in bad ways, but always in sometimes more than we realize at times? Okay. Okay, so let's read on. A friend loves at all times, but a brother is born for adversity. Now, here's a statement where family is very important, right? The next line, a man of many companions may come to ruin, but there is a friend who sticks closer than a brother. So now it's saying that there may be people outside of your family that are better friends than in your family. Does that make sense? So it's saying both, right? We normally look to our family to be a supportive, close friend, but sometimes that doesn't happen, and sometimes there are friends who are outside of our family that are closer to us, okay? Sometimes we don't get to pick. I mean, it just happens, right? Wealth brings many friends, but a poor man's friends desert him. Now, interestingly enough, I found this true. Money has a very strange effect on people. And people fight over money. And sometimes even your closest friends or relatives, you're fighting over something, right? And so money has this thing, and it's saying that friendship goes beyond money, and so they are independent of your wealth. Okay. So one of the characteristics, the first characteristics I think, is that good friends are loyal. Just to summarize these three statements, good friends are loyal. They're going to stick by you whether you're in good times or bad, whether you're rich or poor. They are going to be there for you. Okay, that's a good friend, loyalty. Okay, many curry favor with a ruler, and everyone is a friend of a man who gives good gifts. He who loves a pure heart and whose speech is gracious will have the king for his friend. Now I want you to see that word pure heart. To me, that's this idea of selflessness. Okay, so a good friend is not just thinking for him or herself, but is thinking on behalf of you, right? They are selfless. They're pure. They have a pure heart. And whose speech is gracious. So I want you to notice the tongue, how important the tongue is. Do you remember how the tongue has been mentioned in a wise person, in a fool, in a righteous person, in the gossip, in the quarreler? It's always one of the characteristics is the tongue and how powerful the tongue is. And it's mentioned several times. And one of the characteristics of a good friend is they can filter their tongue. Just like the wise man, just like the righteous man. It's a foundational thing about wisdom that you can control your tongue. All right? So this is a very important matter, and it's spoken of over and over again in Proverbs. Rightly so. Okay, so the second characteristic of a friend is selflessness. Okay, so let's go on. Wounds from a friend can be trusted, but an enemy multiplies kisses. So when I was in corporate, that's called something. You know what that was called in corporate? It's called brown nosing. Have you ever heard that term? That's a corporate term. And brown nosing is you're an employee that's very, very ambitious, and you'll say anything to your boss to try to move up the ranks. Okay, that's brown nosing, right? And so it reminds me of that in this line there, right? Okay, but enemy multiplies kisses. That's where I. But it says here that wounds from a friend can be trusted. In other words, a true friend is willing to risk, at times, telling the truth over even the friendship. They risk the friendship because they are concerned about the other person, that they are willing to risk it and tell them the truth. They are willing to risk being rejected because it's more important that the friend understands the truth. Perfume and incense brings joy to the heart, and pleasantness of one's friend springs from his earnest counsel. You see that? Again, this idea of counsel, of speaking what's true. Iron sharpens iron, so one man sharpens another. I like this passage. You know, the idea that we sharpen each other. We make our friends better, and they make us better. Okay, so here are three characteristics. So if you want a definition of a good friend, according to scriptures, it's loyalty, selflessness, and truthfulness. Okay, pretty good definition, wouldn't you say? Okay, so when you look at friends, you can say, are they loyal? Are they selfless? Are they truthful? When you look at yourself in terms of how good a friend you are to someone else, you can use those 3 criteria and really evaluate, am I doing these things? Am I being a good friend? Do not forsake your friend and the friend of your father, and do not go to your brother's house when disaster strikes you. Better a neighbor nearby than a brother far away. So one of the things I get from this is good friends cannot be assumed. They need to be nurtured. When I was young, I thought, oh, here's a friend and you're going to be my friend forever. But as I've grown older, I realize that that's not how friendship works. You need to work at it. If you want good friends, you need to nurture those friendships. You need to spend time with them. You don't go years and years on end, and ignore your friends. And then, sometimes that may happen, but really the good friends are ones that you nurture. You take time out for. You care. It takes effort. It takes words. Okay. There's an Old Testament example. Do you remember Jonathan and David? Right? That they were really good friends. And what was the thing that Jonathan did that made him a good friend to David? Right? Loyalty, right? In fact, do you remember that he loved David so much that he was willing to put his life on the line in order to help David out and, against his own father, right? Such that David was able to escape from death because of Jonathan's love for him, his loyalty. Okay, so I just wanted to throw in a good example. Now, I think this is a very good definition, a very, very good advice about what a good friend is, that they influence us, they're loyal, selfless, and true, and that we need to cherish our friendships. And I could just end here, but I want to just take a visit into the New Testament, because the New Testament adds another whole layer to this understanding of friendship that I think is so encouraging. So I start off with the question, is it possible to find the good friend? Okay, one who is truly loyal, selfless, and truthful. I know that we have friends that come close at times, right? But can we really find this person? And so I want to take you on a little journey, my journey. As I was growing up, I began to be aware and have this need or desire for a truly good friend. And so you know how songwriters now are our modern day poets, right? And I used to love this song in high school. It was a song written by Carole King, popularized by James Taylor, and it was titled, "You've Got a Friend." And it kind of goes like this: when you're down and troubled and you need a helping hand, oh, nothing is going right. Close your eyes and think of me, and soon I will be there to brighten up even your darkest nights. You just call out my name, and you know wherever I am, I'll come running. Oh yeah, baby. To see you again. Winter, spring, summer, or fall, all you got to do is call, and I'll be there, yeah. You've got a friend, okay? And I love that song because it was expressing a deep desire in my heart in high school. I wanted this friend. Always a friend who would always be interested in me. Close your eyes and think of me, right? Always be there for me. I'll come running, right? always know the right words to say, brighten up even your darkest nights. And so I was on a search in high school. And guess what? I didn't find that person in high school. Okay? I mean, if you really think about it, it's a pretty high demand, right? Can any human really do that? You know, you need to have like a transporter in Star Trek, you know, to transport you automatically whenever you call, and you need to have this ability to know one's thoughts. You know, you had to be so sensitive and wise that you knew exactly the right word. But you know what?
You were at the wrong high school.
I was at the wrong high school. You know what? There is something in us that desires that longs for it. That desire in me that I was feeling is real. It's something that we all have. And Augustine once said that we have a God-sized hole in our hearts. Okay, ever since the fall, right? And so, although it may sound silly, I really thought I could find a friend like that. And so then I graduated high school, didn't find anyone in high school that met that criteria. And I went to college, UCLA. And I met a gal, okay? And she became my girlfriend, and then later on my fiance, and then later on my wife, right? Sandy, right? And there were times, you know, especially when we were first dating, I could say she really, really knew me. I mean, she could finish my sentence. And then the very next day, she's totally insensitive, right? Okay. And then there were times where, you know, I really felt like I was lonely and I really needed her, and she would come running. And then there are other times she didn't, right? And I began to realize that this need that I had for true friendship cannot be met by any human being. It's just impossible. I had to learn that in college. That this James Taylor song or Carole King song is expressing a need that I cannot be fulfilled by human. And so I would say in college, I began to look elsewhere. And I would say that I began to, for the first time in my life, truly fall in love with God. Truly fall in love, really look elsewhere and understand that the one that I was really looking for is not in a human being, but can only be fulfilled in God himself. And I began to really realize what Augustine was saying, that I had a God-sized hole in my heart. Okay, so let's go to some stories. There's a story that I think is pertinent to this, and it's in John 4. And it's about Jesus visiting this Samaritan woman, remember? And he's going down to Jerusalem, and he's thirsty. Do you remember that? And this woman is at the well, and Jesus says, "I can give you water that will never run out." And she says, "I want this water." And then they have this really, really interesting conversation. And Jesus says, "How many husbands do you have?" And she says, "I have no husband." He says, "You're right, because you've had 5 husbands, and even the person you're living with is not your husband." Now, when you're confronted with that, what do you normally feel? Great guilt, right? Great embarrassment that you're being confronted with your sin. But you know what? She reacted completely different. Here's what she says. "Then leaving her water jar, the woman went back to the town and said to the people, 'Come, see a man who told me everything I ever did. Could this be the Messiah?'" So what is she expressing? She's expressing that finally somebody knows me. Finally. Is this "You've Got a Friend" song, right? Finally, somebody knows who I am. And if you think about what has she been searching for in these 5 husbands? To be known. right? To have a true friend, and she couldn't find it in any one of these people. And Jesus comes along and says, I can give you water that never ends. And what is he talking about? In a way of thinking, he's talking about a friendship, a best friend forever. And she finds it. And she says, finally, somebody has told me all that I am, who knows me deeply. Now, normally this is interpreted as she's been confronted with her sin, but I don't think so. I think the whole theme of this thing is it's only Jesus that can satisfy. It's the same thing that I was learning in high school and college, that we truly can't find satisfaction, friendship, in any human relationship. And believe me, I love my wife, okay? But I tell you something really interesting. The more I began to place my need of friendship on God, the better my relationship came with my wife. Does that make sense? Because I'm no longer looking to get from her. I'm getting from God, and I can learn to give, right? The most healthy relationships are one that we're mutually stepping over each other to give, not to get, right? That's what agape love is all about. Okay, John 15, greater man has no one than this, to lay down one's life for one's friends. What does he say here? You are my friends if you do what I command. I no longer call you servants, because a servant doesn't know what is his master's business. Instead, I have called you friends, for everything that I learned from my Father I made known to you. So can you imagine that the creator of the universe, he has every right to call us a servant? Because I am an ant compared to him, right? And yet, I can call Jesus my friend. I can dare to do it. Why? Because he did it first. You see it here? He's saying, I'm not going to treat you as a lowly underling, which, by the way, we deserve. I'm going to treat you as a friend, because and what do friends do? They tell each other things. Confidence. And so Jesus is calling us his friends. It's just, you have to kind of think about it a while, but it kind of blows your mind, because friends imply a certain pureness, doesn't it? And so that's what he's saying here. And so let me move on. In John 17, now this is eternal life, that they may know you. So what is eternal life? Knowing God. You see it? Friendship with God. Okay. The only true God, and Jesus Christ whom you sent. I have brought you glory on earth by finishing the work you gave me. Okay, and what is the work that Jesus did in order to make us know God? He died on the cross, because sin is the barrier that when the fall happened, the reason why we have a God-sized hole in our hearts is because of sin. And it created a barrier such that we cannot know God. We cannot see his glory. Do you remember the thing with Moses, where Moses asked to see God's glory and he couldn't do it? It's because of sin. Okay? And what Jesus' work did was he removed that barrier of sin, so that when we look, we can see God face to face, okay, without dying. And so this is the work of Christ, so that we can know God. Okay. All right. It says here, interestingly enough, I'll just add this. And now, Father, glorify me in the present with the glory I had before the world began. Do you realize that Jesus actually laid aside some of his glory? Because if he had his full glory, we would have been burned up. We could not see Jesus's face. But he laid aside some of his glory to die on the cross, to take away the sin, so that we can see, and not so that we will see his glory someday. We can see the Father's glory. Okay. All right. And so 1 Corinthians 13:12. For now we see only a reflection as in a mirror, but we shall see face to face. Okay. Now I know in part, then I shall know fully, even as I am fully known. Okay. So one of the things I've learned in my journey of life is my best friend forever is possible, but it's not in a human being. It's in Jesus. It's in Jesus Christ. And the more I tap into that, the more I understand that, actually the healthier my relationships are in life. That I become the friend that I was searching for. Does that make sense? And we become more and more that way. Okay. This is wisdom, by the way. This is my journey of wisdom. If I was still a fool and continually looking for friendship, for my best friend from people, okay, I'm going to be over and over again disappointed. I'm going to be a fool. I'm going to fall over and over again. But it was God's grace to me to give me this wisdom to understand that it is him who I need to look to, him who truly satisfies. And then I can go forth and be friends to others because I'm looking to give. Okay, so which one of these proverbs on friendship stands out to you? Why? Do you have an example of a godly friend in your life? How might God be inviting you to be a better friend? Some questions for you to think about. Okay. So let me pray for you, and then I'll let you go for today. Lord, give us this wisdom that it is you who truly are our best friends forever. It is you who truly knows us deeply, who is interested in us, who is there for us, who knows the right words to say and can truly comfort us. Help us to more and more look to you and not to human beings for this. And help us to be truly good friends to others. In Jesus' name, amen. Now, one of the things I want you to understand about church, okay, do you know church is your training ground to be good friends, right? Church is the place where we're supposed to call each other brothers and sisters. And we're supposed to, we don't instantly learn how to be good friends, right? This is the place where we learn how to do it, where we learn how to bear with one another at times, where we learn how to be loyal, where we learn how to be truthful, where we learn how to be selfless. And so I remember there was this one family in the church I was at previously, and they were moving because of work. And I remember standing with her and saying goodbye. And she turned to me and she said, you know, I'm really going to miss this church because I have made better friends here than I have ever made in my life, better than any family I've ever had. And I thought, yes, that is the purpose of church. Okay. So, you know, I just want to say that's one of the reasons why we're here. Okay. All right. So next week we're going to take on the upright and the blameless. Upright and the blameless. Okay. They're a little bit different. Okay. And Proverbs has some things to say about those. Okay. All right, see you later.